Welcome home to St. Anne's. We want you to know that you're welcome to join us at 10 a.m. on Sundays. Please be sure to hit subscribe to receive our sermons. We can't wait to meet you. All right. So today is known as Good Shepherd Sunday by many folks. And it's when we really start to explore this idea of Jesus being the shepherd, which means you and I are sheep. And let's be honest, it's better be sheep than goats. So let's go with it. If this does not make sense to you, good news, the disciples didn't get it either. So that should be a little bit comforting because Jesus was telling this parable in their own time and place. So they should have understood the references. It's very similar to if I were to say to you a parable that included nurses and doctors right now. I would expect you to get that. So the fact that they didn't get it should be a little bit comforting to you. So we're going to dive into it and see if we can pull out what God is trying to say to us right here, right now, for you and for me. And to do that, I think we do need to explore some of the language that Jesus is using here. So I brought props. Yay! I bought Lincoln Logs a long time ago because I think they're really cool, and I really thought my kids would too. Yeah, they didn't, but I have them. And so I'm so excited that I actually get to use them today because they've been living in a bin behind my couch. Okay. So I'm going to build a sheepfold for you out of Lincoln Logs. And maybe some of his language here will make a little bit more sense when you see how shepherds were living in that culture. And some of it is a little bit different for us today simply because we're very used to owning land, right? And so many people here in Missouri, if you raise sheep, you own the land on which your sheep graze. But that historically is not really accurate. And even today, there are places in the world where that's just not how it's done. Out west, if you're grazing cattle or sheep or things like that, you have more of this open land that is common land, right? Okay, can you guys, maybe I'll turn it around so you guys can see my gate here. Okay. So at this time, everybody has sheep because, they're useful for all sorts of things. And generally speaking, sheep are pretty good about doing what you tell them to do. They're a little bit easier to herd than, say, some other creatures like humans. Okay, so what Jesus is saying here, and this would have made a little bit more sense to them, is way up in the hills, you would be moving your herds, right? And overnight, your shepherd would obviously be with their herds because that's a dangerous time. And so in random places throughout the mountains and the hills or wherever you're wandering around with your sheep, there would be these little sheepfolds. And they didn't have Lincoln Logs. They didn't even have a Lincoln yet. So they really didn't have Lincoln Logs. And, there's not a whole lot of wood. So these would have been like, rocks and whatever you could, I don't know, mud, whatever you can build your little fence with. And it would have 3 sides to it. See how my fun little fence has 3 sides to it? Okay. But this gate would be left open. And you would put your sheep in here at night so you could kind of corral them because sheep have a habit, like humans, of wandering where they shouldn't go. Yeah. Okay. Anyway. So you would keep your sheep in there. And depending on how many herds you have, you might have some other people's sheep in there with yours. You might. I don't know. It depends on which hillside you're on. But you, the shepherd, are literally the gate. So the shepherd would sleep right here, would stay right here, guarding the sheep, right? Now, the problem is you don't have a top to this. So, if somebody kind of came over and yoinked one out of there or beat you up and dragged you out, they might be able to steal some of your sheep, right? So the other thing is that sheep would know their shepherd. Like, for instance, my dog can hear my car coming down the street. Do you know that dogs can hear your car, your specific car? They know you're coming down the street. And so they know your voice. Sheep are kind of the same. So they would know who their shepherd was. So that's a little bit of a protection too. So we can get rid of that prop because now you know how to build a sheepfold. Yay for you if you ever need to build a sheepfold out of Lincoln logs. You can. Okay, so what's really, really important here is that we understand that Jesus is the gate. So the shepherd in this position has many, many different roles. It is both protective, it is the leader of that group. It's the one who cares for and loves and speaks to the sheep because it's kind of lonely out there when it's just you and your herd. So chances are your sheep are also your friends. So Jesus' role that he's trying to share here is that he carries many, many different roles within his role as shepherd. And he also wants to make it clear that there are other folks who are also trying to lead humans or sheep in this parable. So it's really, really important for us because I don't know about you, but sometimes it's hard to discern the voice of my shepherd. And that's what I want us to think about a little bit today, is because we know who our shepherd is supposed to be. We think we know that, but sometimes there are so many voices, and it's just so loud out there, isn't it? There's so many different voices and so many different things being thrown at us all the time that we are told, you deserve this. This is what you should do. This is what you should look like. This is how your life should look. This is what being a Christian looks like. This is what not being a Christian looks like. There's so many voices, clanging cymbals, if you will. Just noise, 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 noise. I feel like the Grinch. Noise, 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 noise. And we don't know where to go sometimes. And I think it's really important for us to start to examine that a little bit. Because especially at a time like now, there are so many voices and so many things being thrown at us all the time of what it means to be a Christian right now, what it means to be a good citizen right now, what it means to be a parent right now, what it means to be somebody in your community or somebody in your workplace. What does that mean right now? And where is God calling us? And what voices are God's? And what voices are the thieves and the bandits who are seeking to do harm? And that's hard to discern some days. And so here's what we know about the voice of Christ and the voice of God. It will push us. It will send us to places that we sometimes don't feel comfortable going. It won't be easy places. God calls us to the highest of mountains sometimes because that's where the best grazing is. Did you know that in Ireland you can have like 5? Never mind, don't worry about it. There's another time I'll explain. In Ireland, how many cattle you can get on a very small area because the best grazing is in these incredibly difficult areas to be. And I think that's an important image for us as Christians that where we are called to be is not always an easy place to be, but that is the best place for us to be. So God's voice will not send us to easy places. It will push us and it will drive us. It will always, always, always be a voice of love. Always. And that voice will always call us to greater love. So those are two things. I think you can always measure the sounds and the voices and all the things that you hear against those two things. Does it push you to be better? Does it push you to be greater? And 2, is it a voice of love that drives you to greater love? And if those two things are met, chances are that is our shepherd. And that is a shepherd that you and I ought to follow. If it doesn't sound like that, chances are maybe, just maybe, it might be a thief or a bandit coming to steal, destroy, therefore itself. Because remember, God is never about God's self. Jesus is never about himself. He is always about us. It's always about the sheep. It is always about humans and creation. It is always about that. So maybe, just maybe, if those clanging cymbals don't call you to greatness and higher love, then maybe, just maybe, those aren't the voices that you and I should be listening to. We want you to know that you're welcome to join us at 10 a.m. on Sundays. Please be sure to hit subscribe to receive our sermons. We can't wait to meet you.